Hi guys.
Hey.
I'm Karah.
I'm Ebony.
I'm Laurie.
So thank you for watching. We are so honored to have you. And so this month's theme is the Me Too movement, and we have Laurie Halse Anderson, who is the author of Speak. This is such a phenomenal read. I hope you guys read it, but if you haven't, you will after watching this episode. It's the 20th anniversary. So Speak is about Melinda. She is a teenage girl who goes to a party. She's sexually assaulted. She doesn't report the guy, but she calls the police on the party. And a lot of people were upset at her. And so she kind of goes through the school year, kind of trying to find her voice again, coming to terms with what happened to her. So we like to start off our episodes with a quote. So the quote that really spoke to us is, "It's easier not to say anything. Shut your trap, button your lip, can it? All that crap you hear on TV about communication and expressing feelings is a lie. Nobody really wants to hear what you have to say." So I feel like some people would say this book was ahead of its time, but I totally disagree. I think this book pioneered a lot of discussion about sexual assault, especially with teen girls at a time where nobody wanted to talk about things that were happening in that way with teenage girls. So I have a statistic. According to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, 1 in 9 girls under the age of 18 experience sexual abuse or assault at the hands of an adult. And so one of the reasons why we picked this book is, whether it's a teenage girl going through this or a woman who had this happen to her as a teenager, and still trying to grapple with this, it makes sense why you decided to write the novel. But when, I guess, did you decide to write the novel?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, thank you very, very much for inviting me. I'm just thrilled to be here. It's like, wow! So it's super fun. And I just love that one of the things that technology offers us now that didn't exist 20 years ago is this ability to have conversations, to be able to share them to a broader audience. We were just talking about this in the car, and I think that sort of that loneliness that existed 20 years ago for people who were victims of sexual violence still exists today, but today we have more avenues to talk about it. So along with the Me Too movement, I'm hoping that all this thing is, we're going to change this, right? And that we won't have a 40th anniversary edition of Speak, right? It'll be a historical artifact.
We can have a 40th anniversary.
So when I was 13 years old, a few weeks before 9th grade started, I was raped. We had just moved. My family was kind of in a meltdown because my father was an alcoholic. And when it happened to me, I was so afraid to say anything because my daddy had guns, and I was terrified that he would shoot the boy and that it would be my fault.
Yeah.
So I just pulled it all in, which I think is much more common than not. And I made a lot of mistakes after the years afterwards. But I kind of packed it away. I didn't like to look at it until my oldest kid was headed to middle school. And all of a sudden, she was very much my personality, and she was a shy kid who was very tall and looked older than she was. And I looked at her one day and I went, oh, here we go. And I realized, first of all, before I could talk to my own daughters about things like sexual violence and things like that, I had to deal with my own stuff. So I finally went into therapy after 25 years, and then that sort of took the lid off, and that's where Speak came from.
That's so interesting you say that, because I always think about, when someone is sexually assaulted, you're worried about what's going to happen if you say anything and people don't believe you. But there is that moment or that thought of what would happen if I think of my dad, and he would easily be like, okay, I'm going to kill him, and it's just that fear of not wanting to end someone's life because of what they did to you.
Or to put your father in jail.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, someone you love.
Yeah. So it, I think the reason that the book has kept going is that there are so many, not just women, but men and people who identify outside the binary who have been victims of sexual violence. And we're still looking for ways to talk about that in a constructive and healthy way. But also, very few people survive adolescence without having had something really bad happen, right? Because you're young and you're making mistakes and you're surrounded by people who are making mistakes. And so this is really a book about speaking up after bad things happen. That's sort of, I think, part of the attraction for so many years is that people outside of survivors have another reason that the story resonates with them.
Yeah.
Well, that sort of answers my first question that I was going to ask you, but I guess, I was going to ask, why do you think this book still resonates so much with readers, or will still resonate so much with readers today? But I guess also, why do you think... Actually, I'm sort of interested in the responses initially to the book when it came out. Yeah. And also, like, if you think that this book, you'll probably get some of the same responses now, even though there have been a lot of strides.
When the book first came out, my editor was very clear with me that it was not going to sell many copies. And I shouldn't get my hopes up. This is 1999. The quote was, "Teenagers don't read." Oh my God. Thank you, J.K. Rowling.
Right, it's right there.
Yeah, right. So I was like, okay, what do I know, right? It's my first novel. I don't know very much. And then the book, thankfully, there was a kind of a cohort of young English teachers and librarians who saw the book and started to put it into the hands of readers. And then they started to send me to schools and conferences, and then it began. And what began was I've never given a presentation anywhere, middle school, high school, libraries, bookstores, conferences, without having at least one person, and sometimes a dozen, come up afterwards in tears. And so what I've learned from that is, especially, I mean, not just our young people, but you know, when you've got a trauma that's not processed, especially when you're a kid or a teenager, that trauma is still fresh when you're 55 if you haven't had it cared for. And so, just by the way, why YA fiction is so popular with adults, right? Because it allows us to go back and read about that time in our life and maybe make some progress. So yeah, that's what started. And I was like, at first I just had no idea how to deal with it, and sadly I got better at dealing with it.
And has this been nonstop for the past 20 years, essentially?
Nonstop.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to write a novel? It's one thing to go to therapy and, like, you know, make strides to be better, but like putting this out into the world is a totally different thing.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes ignorance is a beautiful thing. It really is. I had been a journalist. I was that was my day job. I was working at newspapers, writing, and I had published some picture books when my kids were little. So I felt like, oh, I got this world. Right? I sold 1,000 copies. I'm so happy. It was fun. It was fun working with illustrators and stuff. And I had actually written a couple of very bad novels that thank goodness, I turned them into mulch for my garden. And they deserved it. But you know, I wanted to learn that form. Yeah. And Speak was, you know, you have projects as a writer, as an artist, that you're not doing to share with the world. Sometimes we just need to create for ourselves. Yeah. And that's absolutely what this book was. Okay. I was confident it was never going to be published.
Wow. I mean, you turned your pain into art, which is such a brave thing to do, regardless if you didn't know if it would be published or not. Yeah. But
that's kind of you to say. That's where the ignorance is like, because I think if I had written it with the intention that, oh, this is going to go out into the world, I would have been paralyzed by fear.
Yeah. And we're seeing a lot of people do that in the industry, turning their pain into art.
Yeah.
Which I feel like goes into
I mean, I think to that, you know, we have now seen sort of the explosion of the Me Too discussion. And when your book first came out, you got, you know, a lot of pushback. And I guess my question is, like, do you think that there is a gentler climate for the book now? Gentler in that, like, people are willing to receive it more.
I think more people are willing to receive it. One of the biggest shifts that I've seen is that when Speak first came out and was first adopted into school curriculums, it was given to 12th graders in their spring of their senior year, right? Because they're almost at the age where they might be having sex when they're 18. oh boy. Now it's commonly taught in 8th and 9th grade. So you have had this generational cohort of educators coming into the classroom who are much more aware of the lives of their students, and I think more respectful of the needs of their students.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge shift. And I'm starting to see when I'm doing public presentations, dads coming in with their teenagers, which is a huge thing, a huge difference, and a lovely one. I do think that the generation of parents now, having, it's grown up with just a little, but then I'm thinking, like, on the fifth hand, on the other hand, you have such strong reactionary politics in America right now. The incel movement, reactionary, people getting upset about the razor ad, the Gillette ad, where heaven forbid we should suggest that boys not beat each other to death all the time as a definition of their masculinity. So it's like yes and yeah, not so much.
And I read somewhere that, like, it was shocking for you, but, like, some young men didn't understand why Melinda was upset.
It's not that some young men that I've talked to haven't understood that why a woman or girl who's been raped would be upset. It's the overwhelming majority of teenage boys I've talked to for 20 years. Honestly, and I love boys. I have a son, right? Boys are awesome. Men are awesome. But we teach our children the myth that rape is always committed by strangers, right? If you are under 18 years old, 93% of victims who are under 18 are attacked by somebody they know, somebody they know often very well.
Yeah.
Once you get above 18, still 70% of sexual assault is committed by somebody the victim knows. But the boys think, oh, rapists are bad guys and they have guns. And I just maybe pushed it a little bit too far. And their parents teach them about don't get somebody pregnant, try not to get an STD. But then you rarely have conversations in American households talking about issues like consent.
Yeah.
Right? Talking about what the impact that sexual violence has on another person. Boys will tell me, well, the sex only takes a couple minutes. Why would she be so depressed? But what's important to remember is, like, you don't want to jump down that kid's throat with judgment.
Yeah.
He's, like, honestly telling you what the world has taught him. And he's still at the age where he's asking questions.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so awesome to see this book and other books like it. Now we've got a lot of YA fiction that come at this from different angles. That opens up the conversation.
Yeah. I feel like your Afterword by Jason Reynolds does a really good job with that. Just like him, like, talking to the man. It was very wonderful.
Well, we're beginning to talk about, or trying to understand. I'm trying to get some perspective on what this means 20 years. And it's almost like the first 20 years of the life of this book was aimed at discussions with women, girls, people who identify as female. And now it feels like this is the turning point, because now I'm beginning to realize how important it is to talk to men, boys, people who identify as male.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just the language that I'm using here. The other thing that I wasn't aware of and wasn't thinking about when I wrote it is all the intersections that we need to really step up and start listening for and respecting.
That's so funny that you're saying that, because that was my next question. So I saw that you tweeted, for those of you who don't know, last month something aired, a documentary aired, Surviving R. Kelly, and the conversations around it it's just been bubbling up. And you tweeted that there was a New York Times piece about the Me Too movement, and you were like, this is highly recommended when reading Speak. And for those of you who don't know, the Me Too movement was started by Tarana Burke. She's a black woman, and the movement was essentially for black little girls, black teenagers who can't speak for themselves when they're sexually assaulted. So one of the reasons why I love you so much is that you advocate for intersectionality. And I think that sometimes when we're having these conversations, certain groups are kind of just, like, left out of the conversation.
Absolutely.
And so I guess my question for you is, like, do you have any advice that you can share on, like, how we can keep intersectionality, like, top of mind when having these conversations?
And I should say, for those watching, because I don't think a lot of people know what intersectionality is.
Well,
when we talk
would you
about it.
define it, please? You'll do a better job than me.
Well, I don't know if I'll do a good job defining it.
Let's try.
From what I understand, generally, if we're having a conversation about race, or if we're having a conversation about sexual assault, okay, let me put it this way. If we're having a conversation about sexual assault, we have to also consider race. And we also have to consider sexuality. And we also have to consider gender. And if we don't consider them all at the same time, we're doing a disservice to people who might be different than we are.
Exactly.
Right.
I think that's a good definition.
Yeah.
Only in that I think that part of a lot of pushback that I see publicly on the internet is often just because people don't know how to have conversations that are truly intersectional, and everyone wants their corner where they can talk about their thing.
Right.
And I think in order to have nuanced discussions, we can't talk about R. Kelly, and we can't talk about R. Kelly unless we talk about the fact that do we treat his victims the same way we treat Harvey Weinstein's victims?
Exactly.
And I think that's a good example of intersectionality. But I asked you that, and then you asked me to answer. So I want you to answer the question.
What does intersectionality look like to you?
I feel the same way. It means the same. It means exactly the same. And I think that that was just something that really stuck out to me and kind of like spawned this question, because I do feel like, I'm from Detroit. R. Kelly is a staple in Michigan and in the Midwest and just in the Black community in general. And like, this has been going on for years and nobody was talking about it until it was like literally thrown in front of our faces. And so it was just really nice to see you tweet about that, because I was watching that, I'm reading this book, I'm reading Speak or rereading Speak, and it was just like it all just came together. This is the same conversation. We all are having the same conversation. And so how do we kind of make sure that we're not having these conversations in pockets? Like what advice would you give to someone who is having this conversation and not keeping others in mind?
Well, and can I bring up one thing before I forget it? Because I think it's super important whenever we mention the critically vital work of Tarana Burke, B-U-R-K-E. Get that name spelled right. I'm pretty sure she came up with the Me Too hashtag in 2006. And we're speaking in 2019. So that's 13 years ago. And as you see played out over and over again, especially in big media outlets in the United States, when a woman of color comes up with a brilliant idea, no one even hears it, right? They pretend not to hear it. But if a white person says the same thing, it's like, like, let's pay attention to that. And I think that ties to all of this, right? Because really what we're talking about at the heart of a book like this is loving each other, right? Being respectful of each other enough that we create space where people can be authentic, where people can tell their truth, where people are comfortable speaking up, and the rest of the community knows how to listen with their mouth closed. One of the things we are working on hard, and not succeeding all the time, but every once in a while in children's and YA literature, is bringing in other voices. Like, I am sadly still the face of children's publishing. I'm white, I'm cisgendered, I'm female, I was raised mostly middle class, I had access to a college education, right? And there's so many people in America who don't have that, so one of my jobs, I think, is to, whenever I'm in front of white audiences, is to call out my mayonnaise people. We love, because if you tell white people they're white, they're like, right, and they stop listening. But if you call them mayonnaise people, and we can all laugh about it, right?
I can relate.
Yeah, right. And I think that if we white people, we've got a lot of work to do, and some of us are trying, and that we just have to start taking another extra breath sometimes before we respond to people, especially in public spaces. I see a lot of performative BS online. And it's like, okay, you could tell yourself that here, but I'm just starting to see on non-profit organizations who work with survivors of sexual violence, I'm beginning to see them posting resources for transgendered people, right? And the people who love the transgendered people. I don't see very much conversations about the intersection with people who have like mobility issues, like or other kinds of body or neurological differences. That's something we have to pay attention to. And the case with those women and girls who've very likely been abused by R. Kelly, I mean, that the fact that has gone on for so long, that's just a shame on every single one of us.
Yeah.
And so to move forward, now how do we as a community of loving people find a way to make sure that the judiciary does its job, which it rarely does, especially when the victims are Black girls. But also, like, how do we build communities that can support not necessarily those families unless their support that they ask for, but like now we can understand a little bit deeper. Wow, this is like, look at how this affects entire communities, and how do we make the world a little bit better to respond to those communities? Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah,
you really did.
And it goes sort of right into my next question, which is, I guess as someone who's done as much work as you have, especially in the past 20 years, are there organizations that you would recommend for women who are, sort of seeking counsel or guidance or, or therapy or...
The organization that is my go-to, that I'm always sharing, is RAINN.org. That's RAINN.org. Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. One of the founders was Tori Amos, also a survivor herself. They're based in Washington, D.C. They are they're the group. They have national presence, but then they also partner with local groups all over the country. They have a special hotline for survivors of sexual violence who belong to the military, right? They have an anonymous chat line, anonymous hotline. Professional people are on the phone. They have a ton of resources on their website. They have resources, they have statistics, and everything is, the sources are cited, which the writer in me loves so much. They also have sources for if you're a friend or relative of someone who's been hurt, how do I react? You go to their website and they tell you. So RAINN, there's also another one. So RAINN serves everyone who's can be a victim or people who love them. There's a specific, fairly new organization, I believe it's called 1in6.org, the number one,
I've heard of
right?
it, yeah.
And that's aimed at male survivors of sexual violence.
And I guess as a follow-up, and there's no clear answer to this, but sort of like, what would you say to people who are trying to be helpful or trying to be useful to victims of sexual assault? Even, and this is what every time we talk to a different YA author, it's like, I'm, as you said, reminded why I like reading YA, which is that I'm 29 now, I have such empathy for myself when I was 16,
right?
Way more than I could have when I was 16.
Yeah.
And so I guess all of the bullshit that happens in high school, how do, as teenagers and as young women and as young men and as parents, like, how, in your opinion, sort of, how can we be good to one another, essentially?
Make me Queen of America. Give me my staff. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. I feel the same way. My answer to your question is the exact same answer that I would have given if you asked me about diversity issues or race relations in the United States. And so it's interesting for me in my little brain that it's all circling around to the same thing for me. And for me, what I would love our country to work on is so that every time we see another person in our country, our automatic first response is, you're my sister, you're my sister, you're my brother, right? And to see, you're my sibling, right? And to see each other as an extension of ourselves. And there's always a connection because we're Americans, right? Whether, depending, doesn't matter on your documentation, right? Or there's a reason you're here. And we're all here for a lot of different reasons, but we're all here, right? And so let's start building our culture. We've been limping along for 242 years with dragging behind us the chains of colonialism, the chains of white supremacy, the chains of genocide. That's not a great way to build a culture. And we're seeing that by weighing in so heavily, leaning into capitalism, where you are valued by what you own, or how much power you feel you can exert, wow, that's a really, really not sustainable way to live. You know? So if we can begin, there's some beautiful videos, have you seen them going around, about the kindergarten kids?
Yeah.
All right, the greeter, and people choose, they point, do you want to be greeted by the greeter with a high five, a fist bump, a wave, or a hug? Right, which is the best model of consent you could ever use for 4 or 5-year-olds. And that's the kind, now we could take that and build on that model and throughout your entire life. Throughout your entire life. I would redesign most large public high schools, but the first thing I would do to help heal America is I would change the funding for public education. Because right now, by funding public education with property taxes, you're just guaranteeing that rich kids are going to get everything. And so that means that at the most important point in their lifespan, our children are being treated so unequally, and that inequality of opportunity and that inequality of attention plays out in really harsh ways. And then you get kids who are, handed everything, handed the world on a silver platter, and so now they're all filled with their privilege, and they treat other people like dirt. Then you've got other kids who never had an opportunity, and we have to change that. That's sort of the policy. My policy prescription is to change the funding of public education. Period. And my heart talk is to start seeing each other as family. We can build that family.
That's beautiful. So I feel like this question is often over asked, but in this instance, it's very important. For anyone who's watching this, anyone who's read your book, especially if they feel like they're suffering in silence, like what would you want them to take away from this?
Well, know that I have my arms around you. I've knit you an Afghan in my heart. I'm going to make you cookies. Trauma, and especially trauma when you are not fully formed, right? You're a baby. No offense, 16-year-olds, but kind of still are babies, a little bit. That's devastating, and you don't have the language to talk about it, And so the first thing I need you to do is to stay alive. Right? And you get to mess up, and a lot of people after they've experienced trauma, they go deeply into substance abuse or other kind of self-harming stuff, and it breaks my heart, but I understand it. But you need to stay alive. As long as you stay alive, we can work on that. And then the second thing is to find the way for you as a person who's been hurt to begin to understand the experience. It's very rare that people will run and tell somebody, right? Unless it's somebody else witnesses the emergency. But this is where art comes in, right? This is where writing and drawing and making music and start to express for yourself what your feelings are. And then you can find that safe person, preferably a trustworthy adult, because they have more power to start talking to.
Well,
no, I would sort of. I just want to say, before I ask this somewhat frivolous question, that I think it's very. I think we don't appreciate these days that 20 years ago, people were not as open at all.
Exactly.
And not only that, as you were saying, the lines of communication were, I don't even, 90% of the lines of communication we have now were not in use. And so it's a huge deal. I think what I kept being reminded of when I was reading this book again is like, it's a huge deal for someone to have this book in 1999. And I just hope like people who read the book can understand what a big deal it was to have this book. It's it's the same kind of way, when you have movies that were so sort of boundary breaking in times, like you have to really appreciate them now because they don't, we can go on Twitter and we can go on Facebook and we can read 10 different opinions, but there was a time when there wasn't that.
But I want to add something to that, if I may, and, because you're right, we have all these methods, but still, for survivors of sexual violence, especially when you're young. Often you don't even have the language. I was in the Midwest a little while ago, and I gave a presentation. I think it was Wisconsin. And a young girl pulled me aside afterwards, the way they often do. And she had been sexually molested by a relative for a couple of years until she finally realized that, oh, this is, all of her icky feelings. And she finally told somebody, and the police were involved. And she was almost 17 at that point. And it was still the court case was beginning to unfold. And she said, before you went and stood in that front of that room, she hadn't read my book yet. She said, I thought I was the only person in the entire world this had ever happened to.
Wow.
So those lines are there.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point, because it's also, I think you're right. I mean, in that regardless of sort of what you can see or can hear, especially when it happens to you, there is the like keyhole effect where you feel like there's no way out.
And this is where friendship is so important, right? Yeah. Because you've been traumatized and like you're kind of buckled down, but maybe you'll let a friend in a little bit, and your friend is the one who is more likely to go and find some resources and bring them to you.
Exactly.
That's operating out of love.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely, I mean, I'm thinking about it now, in terms of addiction or coming out, even if you know that there is AA or you know that there are treatment programs, when you're in the throes of addiction, you can't see that. And that's, and so a book like this still is like a beacon, So now I'm going to ask a more frivolous question.
And everyone's crying.
Jane's this is our first big tearjerker, I think.
I know,
Not even tearjerker, just emotional. I think, so we do this thing at Belletrist called The Brief, where we ask very cute questions about things that you like.
I can do cute. I can really do cute.
So the first question is, what is your favorite indie bookstore?
Ooh, now you're putting me on the spot. I got a couple.
You're like, this is not cute.
So I'm from the boondocks of northern New York, and there's a wonderful independent bookstore in Oswego, New York, which is pretty, if you step into the lake, you're in Canada. And there's lots of snow and lots of cows. But the bookstore is called the River's End Bookstore. It's been there for 15 years now. It's at the corner of the central intersection. There are a couple stoplights in town. And that bookstore has helped revitalize that community. People have never stepped foot into a bookstore because they didn't have one. Are comfortable walking in there. So I've actually seen how that can change, at least in rural culture, from that example. There's also a great bookstore outside Philadelphia and Haverford. There's so many great bookstores.
I know.
Just start, pounding. I'm so Word Bookstore in Greenpoint in Brooklyn, and now also in Jersey City. Bookstore, but I think the bookstores are coming back. It's been
the statistics show.
And statistics also show that at least so far, today's teenagers prefer to read books on paper. In addition to, do you have more questions?
No.
I gotta keep going.
What you want.
There's another kind of great movement that's connected to this. Is a group it's a grassroots movement of high school English teachers called Project Litcom. Elizabeth Acevedo's been involved with them, and Nick Stone is a huge friend of theirs. And their teachers were just like, this is ridiculous. Nobody wants to read Old Man and the Sea. What if we gave the kids books that they actually wanted to read? And so it's just like, not surprisingly, these kids are like reading dozens of books now. So you have bookstores, and then you've got education, you've got great social media and things like this. And even though I feel kind of like the country's like at the verge of nuclear annihilation, I hate to use that word, at the same time, maybe this is part of the backlash to that, is people doubling down on art and love and community building.
Couldn't agree more. Are there songs, I guess actually I'm interested as a humongous 90s music fan. When you were writing this book, was there music that was really helpful to you?
Tori Amos on repeat 24/7. She's also a preacher's kid like me, so I just feel like we're twin sisters from different mothers. I really feel her.
Love Tori Amos. Do you listen to podcasts? Is there a podcast?
I listen to audiobooks.
Oh.
That's,
Are you a bit, you like?
Yeah, it's actually about 3/4 of my reading is audiobooks.
Oh, interesting. I've started. I kind of like it. Are there favorite things that you have, like a favorite kind of strange, like food or beauty thing or clothing item that you like that you would recommend to people?
Yeah, actually, I just found for the first time in my very long life under eye cream that I love.
I'm always looking as a bag.
Right? I think it's called, I should have brought it with me. I think it's called Bay Body, but it's BAE. And it's a funny little case, and like I've bought everything, right? And this stuff is amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Before anything else? Yeah. Before anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's gorgeous. What else was the question? Things I like?
Like snack things or beauty products or clothing.
Something you have to take on the road
like
with
something
you.
you take on the road.
Well, I have to be careful with my blood sugar, right? So I try to eat keto, and there's a great keto bar from a company in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's like a lot of healthy fat, and it tastes good. It doesn't taste like some of those dreadful things you can buy. I believe, right? This tastes amazing. So that and a cup of coffee, I'm good to go.
Cool. Are you? Where can readers find you online, like on Instagram?
Everywhere. Yeah, it's my favorite procrastination. It's like, I have to go on Twitter because I'm an author. It's part of my social media outreach. Yeah, I can do that. Usually most of my social media handles are at Halse Anderson, HALSE. My website is Madwoman in the Forest because I'm from the forest. I'm from the boondocks, and I never thought anybody would learn how to spell Halse, which is my maiden name. So that's why I had this strange thing. But so Instagram, Twitter, Facebook for the olds like me.
And us, we're on Facebook.
I know, we're on Facebook too.
and hey, I'd love to hear your thoughts about where Tumblr's going all of a sudden.
We're not going to have that discussion.
Okay. Yeah, so let's just say that it's.
But what is your handle on Tumblr? You have one?
Yeah, I've got two. I think one is Laurie Halse Anderson, and the other one has been a little bit not taken care of recently because I also love American history, right? 'Cause I want to write books about that. So I have a Tumblr called Hotties of the American Revolution.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good.
Should be a book.
Yeah, it should be. Because I one of the problems that we have with understanding our history is that you look at those paintings of the rich people and you're like, I can't identify with that.
Yeah.
So on a lot of the posts in that, I tried to find modern actors or actresses who physically resemble, who could play them in the movie, and so I'll put the picture up and then I'll give you interesting facts.
Oh, I
That's
love that. I gotta
amazing.
check that
I know,
out.
I
That's
am too.
genius.
I love it.
Hotties of the American Revolution.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, make sure to post your comments below for a chance to win a signed copy of Speak. Follow us.
This is a new
Yeah,
cover.
That is a
new
great
design.
cover. Can we, introduction by...
I was just about to say,
Thank you.
Ashley Ford, who's amazing. She's a great one to follow on social media as well.
Yes.
And Afterwards by author Jason Reynolds. You can follow us on Facebook at Why Not YA Books. We're on Epic Reads at Epic Reads.
We're
at
at
Belletrist. And thank you so much. This conversation was amazing. I have chills. I have a lot to think about. I'm surprised I wore a waterproof mascara. Just
Good
for this
job.
interview.
You held it together. Very, I'm impressed.
I tried.
Teach me
I have like that perpetual chill. Do you know what
I know,
mean?
yeah,
Okay,
I
that's how
do. I know.
felt.
I was hot when we first started, and now I'm like normal. But thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
coming.
My
And
pleasure.
thank you guys for watching.
Yes.
Thanks.
See you next time.
Bye.